So last time we covered some intricacies of working with images. This time around, we're going to dive deeper into lists and tables. So let's go ahead and create a new HTML document. So I pressed Command N to create a new file, and I'm going to save this as tablelists.html. And we're going to go into the intricacies of working with lists and tables. So let's start out this document with our standard template, HTML, head, create a body. Inside the head, we'll add a title, lists, and tables. Inside the body, we'll add an H1. And first, let's start with lists. In a previous video, we went over how to create an ordered list with the OL tag and add a list item inside, like apple, another list item, orange, third list item, banana. And notice how it shows up as a list of numbers. Well, it turns out we can mess around with lists a little bit more by adding some properties to it, specifically to the ordered list. One of the properties we can add is the letter that we want to use. You can see brackets has given us some suggestions. So whereas on the right now it's just a standard 1, 2, 3 type list, if we add the property type A, it changes to ABC. If we add the letter I, it changes to lowercase Roman numerals. If we add a capital I, it changes to uppercase Roman numerals. Another property we can add is start. For example, say we'd created a list further up in the document, and that ended at, let's say, item 3, and we want to start off at item 5. We can specify a start property for the ordered list, and it'll start at a particular value. There used to be a few more properties for ordered lists and unordered lists, but those were later removed with the HTML5 specification, largely because the developers of HTML5 want us to use a little bit of CSS. So let's create an example unordered list. Li, bread, another Li, bagels, a third Li, cream cheese, and let's call this Li, or let's call this list groceries. Let's call this list up here fruits. And we don't really need to link to a specific CSS file to add some CSS to our lists. There is something called inline CSS that we can add as a property to a particular list item. And the property of the unordered list that allow us to change the way that the unordered list is displayed is called list-style-type. Now, since this is a little bit of CSS, it is a CSS property, we have to specify the list style type. And then now you can see brackets is giving us a few suggestions after we enter a colon. So again, it's style equals quotations list style type with dashes in between each word, and then a colon. Then let's do a square. As soon as we typed square, the bullets automatically changed to square. The semicolon's optional. In case we wanted to define additional styles, we would separate them with a semicolon. But for now, this is the only type of CSS that we need to use in order to add some extra features to our unordered list. It used to be that unordered lists also had a type property that we could specify square or other things like that. Note that some previous features were removed in HTML5, but you can accomplish the same thing using a style tag or using a CSS file. There's one other type of list that I want to cover that doesn't normally get much attention. To cover this list, I've created a separate HTML file. You can continue in the same HTML file, but I just wanted to give it a different HTML file because this list you won't see very often, but in certain cases it can be really useful. So inside the head, I'm going to create a title called description list. And inside the body, create an H1 tag called description list. And the way you create this list is with the DL tag. And inside the DL tag, there are some pretty specific requirements, because for a description list, you need a description term, and then following that, you need a description. Note that you can have multiple description terms, and they will be assumed to have the same description. For example, let's have our description term be content or satisfied. Let's capitalize them since they're glossary terms. And then have that description be a feeling of being happy with the current state of affairs. We can have another description term of rage and have the description for that be a feeling of fury, generally implying that its effects are temporary. Then we can have a third description term of confusion and have that description be a state of mind associated with not being able to understand a series of topics or events. In this case, note that there must be a description term followed by a description. Multiple description terms will be assumed to have their definitions be followed by the next DD tag. Although you won't see this list being used very often, it's very useful for creating glossaries or index cards.